Welcome to Everyday Ham, where ham radio meets the real world. Get ready for casual chats, real stories, and a bit of everything else. Perfect for every ham and wannabe ham.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Ham podcast. This is episode 8. I'm James, K-A-J-K-U, joined here by Rory, W-8-K-N-X, and Jim, N-8-J-R-D. But before we get formally started, I just want to remind you, you can find our videos, information about our show, our audio podcast at everydayham.com. So all the information is located there. We'd really appreciate if this is your first time joining us to remember to hit the like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening in the audio podcast, whatever your platform is, a 5-star rating or leaving a comment greatly helps us. So if you like what you're hearing, just be sure to like and subscribe and rate. So with that, we'll turn it over to you, Rory. What has been going on in your daily ham life these last few weeks?
I'll also mention when you go over to our website, take a look for our link to our Discord server. It's a slow channel. It's just getting to a start, but we have a cool little community that's already formed there, and people are already talking about their projects and the things that are going on in their ham world. And the three of us are in there, as well as our friend Shane, KF8BWN, who is also helping with some of the everyday ham stuff that you guys don't get to see. And certainly pop in the Discord and join the conversation. It's certainly, like I said, it's a small crowd there, but it's growing, and we're enjoying talking and getting to know each and every one of you that take the time to pop in there.
Yeah, so we just had Rodney join us from Texas, AE5TX, and so thanks to him. We like to usually welcome one of our new members here on the pod, so it's fun to meet some new folks as they pop in and introduce themselves, and also just kind of see what they're doing in ham radio. So, yeah, sorry, Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. It's certainly post your photos, post your questions. It's just a good forum for some conversation. So what's going on in my ham world? It's been a pretty quiet week in the shack at home. A little bit of POTA the last couple of weeks. I did have a first run with my buddy pole, dipole system, and I think there's a video on my excursion out to Mayberry State Park that will be dropping for that soon.
Yes.
I think maybe in a couple weeks.
The 14th officially, yeah.
Okay, well, so that was a good one. Jim and I went out and met out at Mayberry over here in Northville Township, and we had a good time. It's a fun video to watch. I enjoyed watching it back, and certainly learned a couple things, and I look forward to everybody's feedback on that one of everything we did wrong with all of the things, because we were certainly fuddling around quite a bit.
Let's be clear. We demonstrated that we are everyday hams, right? We do not know it all. Sometimes we get out in the field, and things don't go the way we expect.
I have no problem with that, so that's fine. In the shack, otherwise, not much. Tomorrow, a couple of us are getting ready to go and help out our local ham radio club and do a little bit of quick work on our repeater at the water tower here in South Lyon. We have to do some fixes to the cellular network and the Wi-Fi network that we piggyback off of for our All-Star network access and the repeater controller and all that. So our club's chief engineer, Steve, N8AR, the smartest 80-something-year-old you'll ever meet, he'll be out there to help us, and we hope to have Steve on the show here with us sometime in the near future. I really would like to hear his history, and he's always got a story. I bet that one would go 3 hours, but that's about all I have going on here. What about you, Jim?
Well, I agree with you completely. I will say that if that call sign rings a bell and you're listening out there, you're wondering, why do I know N8AR? It's because he sells the kits for hams, the Sherry nodes. And so if you're into the Sherry or All-Star nodes, it's highly likely that you've been exposed to one of Steve's products. And he does develop those here in Michigan. And it's a sort of family-run business. So if you are in that market, we do encourage you to go check those things out, because he's a man that stands behind a product, and he will make sure that you get that thing set up and running. And I found out last time he has quite a guarantee when I talked to you guys last time.
Yep.
As far as that's concerned, a couple of new things in the shack, which I think that I thought were further out than they actually were. Classic, when we came back from Hamvention, I said, boy, I'd like to put a flex in my shack at some point. And why? A man gets impatient and a man buys a flex. So,
why wait?
Why wait? Just like a Snickers, I had to grab it. The the Flex arrived on QRZ, and I did end up buying a 6400 ATU, which I call the sort of entry-level Flex at this point, given the prices have fallen to the point where folks can kind of dabble and not feel like perhaps they're overspending. Now, I'm not going to say it's cheap, right? It still costs $1,500 to get it shipped, but for a used HF radio that does 100 watts and has a built-in tuner, I think it's pretty close in line. So I did put that in the shack here recently, and I have been experimenting a little bit with it. And I will tell you, it's sitting right next to the 101 MP, and we are doing a little bit of A/B testing between the two of them. And there are some interesting things that have come from having two really nice radios sitting next to one another, right? As soon as I put this thing in the shack.
What a problem to have. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm living perhaps less everyday ham life here. I know. Sorry. There's a couple of good, nice radios. What I will say is, as soon as I bought it, I made a comment about it, and I had a lot of folks that were hardcore Flex folks say, well, you'll never turn that 101 MP on again once that Flex shows up on your desk. And I will tell you, that is not the case. I will also tell you that I still believe that the 101 MP in my operating environment performs more admirably for noise control, and that is just my initial blush. We're not going to go too far into it because I have only spent a few weeks with it so far. I do appreciate some of the folks on the Flex Facebook, which I will give some credit here, who said, hey, brand new 6400, here's a few things you should know, gave me some pointers on how to work the DSP to help me find a noise floor that's acceptable in this HOA ham environment that I operate in. So suffice it to say, I think there's more coming on the Flex, but it's been really fun to have two of these radios sitting next to one another, really be able to kind of check them against one another, and also perhaps make a somewhat believer out of Rory, who said, I don't know if I'm a Flex guy. I don't know if I'm a Flex fan.
As always, Jim was welcoming and opened his shack for me to come over and press all the buttons. Lets me sit in the big chair where you see him sitting there right now.
All the virtual buttons that exist on the Flex.
Kick Bentley and Cash out of the room and let me play radio. And I very much appreciate that, since Jim tends to have more new toys than I do in my everyday ham shack. But if anyone remembers, I think we've spoken about the Flex, and my big thing about the Flex has always been, I need a radio, I need buttons, I need dials. Well, the Flex has its Maestro control unit that can be a thing. Jim does not have that. I've never had my hands on one. Perhaps someday I will. Maybe I won't. We'll see. But the Flex experience, basically I sat down completely blind, never having used the interface, sat down at Jim's chair there and just started using the radio. My big thing was, I need a radio, I need dials, I need all the switches right in front of me in order to be comfortable with the radio. I was pleasantly surprised that after maybe 10 or 15 minutes of fuddling around with the screen,
Yep.
What's it called? The Smart SDR? Is that what
Smart
it's called?
SDR is the application. Yep.
The application. I was basically able to use it just like I would any other radio, and I didn't hate it. Whether or not I would have a Flex in my shack, it's very unlikely that I would have a Flex in this shack, but it opened my opinion to, if I were to want to set up a remote station, which is something that I, as being a extremely controlled HOA in a condominium, that is something I do have on the plan somewhere, is potentially have a remote station somewhere. The Flex might find a spot in that. Again, I don't have enough time with it to say that for sure, but it did open up my eyes to understand, maybe I don't hate this interface. Maybe it's not that bad of a radio to use. Jim was also kind enough to share the login credentials for the remote login to it, and I think I've used it 3 times now, once that he knows about and twice that I don't think he knows about. One time was 2:30 in the morning, and I wondered if
I still have to get in there to try it out.
One time I didn't know if I would start, making noise in the house, but I figured
or go on 40 meters and start flipping the lights and faucets that are touching on and off.
I wondered if I would do, but I've logged in a handful of times, and the experience remotely was good too. It's the exact same experience as if you're sitting in front of it. A little bit of latency that may or may not be my internet here or Jim's internet there, but certainly fully functional. So it's making me a believer. I look forward to following the Flex saga with Jim, and we'll see. You never know what will show up in this shack of mine.
Yeah, and I would be curious to see your full review as well, because you did listen to the full spectrum of feedback prior to. So I think Rory was always open-minded at least, but you had the people that told you it's just another Windows box, it's not a real radio, and then you had the people that were obviously hardcore believers that really thought it was a revolutionary product. So I think when you do deliver your review, I'll be curious to see where you land, because again, you've had that feedback from all sides.
I will say that I'm always open to trying something, even if I'm not 100% a believer. And I'm also willing to put some money out to do that test, just to find out whether or not it's going to change my mind, because I have been pleasantly surprised in certain scenarios where I bought a product that I didn't think maybe I was going to love, and it ended up being something that was one of my favorite things that I had bought in that particular class of product, right? So Flex is kind of in that band of space where I wasn't sure if I was going to be a believer or not. But I had to try it because it just had some unique functionality, especially, like Rory said, the remote capability.
And we've talked about the Aurora being an attractive piece of hardware with the 500 watts and the, everything that goes with a Flex. So, if this is the entry-level Flex, I'm curious.
100%. Yeah, this is it was at the price point now, right? Perhaps the only thing cheaper that you'll find on the market is a used 6300, and that would be very close in price. So around the $1,500 mark, it appears, is where these 6,000 series Flexes have landed after the Aurora announcement, and B, the 8,000 series coming out. So it was a prime time to get my hands on it, and have had a lot of fun with it. I will tell you that I have made a number of contacts on it. I've gotten great audio results and feedback from folks that have heard me talking on it. So it clearly works, right? It's a 100-watt rig that works, and I had no doubts about it, right? Flex has been around a long time, but I will tell you It is a very divisive sort of crew when it comes to Flex, right? You have people that love it.
They have a very polarizing,
That's exactly right. Yeah. Polarizing is exactly the right term. Like there are people that love it, and there are people that just can't get over the idea of Flex. They just don't love it. And we had some of those folks in the club when I said, "Hey, I bought a Flex. I'm going to be testing it out," and there was some of that kind of feedback that I got where they were like, gosh, okay.
Yeah. The only other brand that maybe has some polarization is Elecraft, but it's more of everyone agrees it's a decent product or a really good product, but then the price point and the a la carte of the options. But Flex, they really drive a polarizing audience.
Yeah, yep. So I will, I think, spend another month with it before we really develop some thoughts on it. I will tell you the one thing, like I said, is if we're putting 101 MP and Flex on my desk today and I have to pick one, the 101 MP still wins, and it's because it can control the noise in a more effective way for me. And I'm not saying that's for everybody. If you live out in the middle of Texas with nobody around you and no noise and you have a great antenna, Flex probably does a hell of a job for you, right? So that's where I'm at right now.
So those that don't know, Jim also will sell his children, i.e. radios, for he'll swap them out and change in some. So what radio did you sell for the Flex? Do you remember?
So this one was originally I built a desk riser, and we talked about this. I kind of did a rebuild of the desk around the time that the 101 MP showed up, and I built it with space for the Flex because I always figured that it was going to land there eventually, right? So I had it all like perfectly measured to fit the Flex right next to 101 MP.
And
so
it fits just like that too.
It does. It's perfectly. A glove. It's perfect fit. But what I will tell you is I didn't actually move a major radio for this one. I kind of moved a bunch of little stuff. I moved a number of my handhelds, which I had been sort of amassing.
Ooh, you're real children, though.
Yes, yeah.
You do love handhelds.
So we've talked about, I love the love for HTs. But I've gone, and I completely think if Baofeng's where you need to start, get a Baofeng, man. Yeah.
But you've been refining your collection to your personal
That's exactly
taste.
Right. Yeah. So I did end up getting rid of a lot of that less expensive stuff, and I just said, we're gonna filter down the collection a little bit there, and it made space, and it also added up a couple bucks that we could put the Flex on the desk and give it a real test. So that's what's new in the shack. I think we're going to talk more about Flex in a little while, but it's exciting to have one here. And the nice thing is now you guys can get your paws on it whenever you want, 3 o'clock in the morning perhaps. See if you can turn my faucet on and make a contact across the United States.
I'm probably, I know you have some travel coming up to where you're not going to be home and wanting to use it. I don't want to get in your way by logging into the thing while you're trying to use it. So that's one of the things I've kind of not done it too often, but I know you've got some travel coming. I probably will spend a little bit more time with it, get to understand the interface a bit more. And by the time we're ready to talk Flex for real, I might have a little bit more,
Yep.
little bit more to say about it for sure.
Yeah, I've been really curious to try the remote software. I just haven't had a chance since you shared it, so I need to also get in there and do it. Maybe news to share. We have officially booked our trip to Hamcation in Orlando this February. Oh, while
Not
we're
without
poding,
a bunch
we
of
can also
consternation
flex.
this evening. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an exciting time. Rory was right. We should have been recording that for its own episode of us trying to book flights on Spirit. But that's maybe another story.
We're all true Detroiters. We probably goes back for me anyway to the Northwest days flying out of DTW. I am a very loyal customer, and of course, there's no reason to be loyal to an airline. We could go on and on about that, but Jim over there in frugal land, budget land, I don't know what land.
Got to leave room for flex spending.
Jeez, and I guess that's why I don't have a flex, is I don't fly Spirit. Well, we're flying Spirit to Orlando. We're doing it. The price was right. My price cost me $50 more than the other two for reasons unknown.
It kept kicking you out.
It kept kicking me out. The son of a bitch. I'll
It
tell
didn't
you,
want
we never had.
It was flight roulette.
I wish we were recording it, because there was probably a show. It was a side of my personality that these guys have not.
Well,
gotten
I'm
to
very
experience
convinced
yet.
they were doing it on purpose. It was like after 30 seconds or a random interval, you get kicked out and you have to go back to the very, very beginning. There's no save or you pass go and collect $200. It's literally right back to the beginning, and then you frantically try to book again. So if anyone from Spirit's listening, that's maybe something to look at. But that's a different
Also,
story.
if anybody is planning on meeting us at a specific time on Friday, don't cross your fingers. Maybe
be
do
there
cross your
Saturday.
fingers for us, because we are flying Spirit. So we will be at Orlando
Confident
Hamcation
we'll get there
when we
at
show
some
up.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
On that
point
note,
in the
if
day.
anyone's going to be down there and you want to catch us for a beer, I'm sure that can work out.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it.
Beer or POTA, I guess.
Yeah, beer or POTA. We will
Or both.
definitely be getting at least one POTA activation to light up Florida on the map for all of us. I think I don't have a
This will
Florida
be my first
activation.
Florida for POTA.
Okay, cool. So that makes it for all of us. Yeah, certainly looking forward to it. I joke about the Spirit. It'll be,
It'll be
Spirit
fine.
Airlines.
Yeah,
It was,
it'll be fine.
It makes sense to go with a flight that's half the price of something else for a flight like that.
For
So
a 2-hour flight to
right,
Florida.
right.
It's going to be horrible when we get off and it's warm weather in February versus the Michigan weather. So,
you know what,
feel
though?
bad
That's-
for us.
I've done a number of quickie February trips to Florida.
Yeah.
It's such a great thing to do when you're in the dead of winter Michigan, to get out of here for just a minute, and then you really only have a little bit of winter left
A
when you
real
get back.
hamcation, if you will.
I'm looking forward to it.
So maybe a couple quick updates from my side before we move into one of our main topics. Special thanks, by the way, to Ray Novak, N9JA, who joined us for a special episode. Do apologize. So I have good internet today, but when we were recording, my internet was not the world's greatest. It failed to upload some of the audio track, so there are parts where it dumps the audio track. I apologize. That's not Ray's fault. That's my fault. Also, Ray was live from an air show, so you do hear some jet noises, as you would expect to hear. But Ray gave us a lot of his time. We really appreciate it. About an hour and a half of personal stories with Ray, who, for those who don't know Ray, he works for ICOM North America. Awesome dude, really friendly, and honestly some of the best ham stories you could ever find. So if you're interested, the episode is up on YouTube. It's also posted on our audio podcast platform, so be sure to check that out. Other update I have relates to, so those that know, I'm one of the organizers for a Michigan POTA meetup that we do every year in June. So we will have our meetup June 6th at Hartwick Pines State Park in Michigan. So that's up near the Grayling. So for those watching on YouTube, let me get out my Michigan map hand. It's going to be awkward. But
For those
it's
not
kind
in
of up
Michigan,
here.
it's shaped like a mitten.
Yeah, it's get out my mitten here, and it's about in the middle of the state, northern portion. So near Houghton Lake, a lot of really beautiful area. It's an old growth pine forest state park. It's beautiful, one of probably the best in the state, if not the country. So if you're interested in attending, mark your calendars. I think camping reservations will open November sometime. It's about 6 months before, if I believe so.
And this will be the third annual Michigan POTA meetup.
Yep. So last year we had a lot of campers. We had about 80 plus attendees that
Huge,
showed
yeah.
up. Yeah, it was a great event. Really awesome to meet other POTA enthusiasts or just share your ham knowledge. So again, if you're in the area and you're interested, be sure to stop by and check it out.
I'm looking forward to it. I don't have that. I've never been to that park. For as many up north trips I've taken as a kid and as an adult, I've never been in that park.
Me neither. I've driven by it
I'm looking
1,000
forward to it.
times.
Yeah.
It also
as a
has
guy
a chapel
that,
too.
It does indeed. As a person that went to Gaylord school system, it was a required field trip for the young kids to go to Hartwick Pines.
Jim has lived Hartwick Pines.
I actually joined the school system too late, so I didn't go, but my brother did go on the requisite Hartwick Pine field trip. It's a really cool park, though, and it will be an excellent spot to camp. Middle Michigan at that time will likely be nice
Beautiful.
and temperate, so it should be a really good outing. So looking forward to it, James, and thanks for all the stuff that you guys are doing on that to get it set up.
So if you're looking for more information on it, it's MichiganPOTAmeetup.com. Hopefully by the time this episode posts, the website will be updated to reflect the information for Hartwick Pines. If not, just give it a little bit of time. It'll be up there in the next couple days.
Absolutely.
So with that, why don't we go into our first main topic? So we want to put this in some context. The focus of this is really around our spectrum defense. And as hams, are we worried about some of the news we're hearing related to frequency allocation and also maybe the intrusion of on our frequencies from corporate entities? So the first piece we get, just to give a little bit of background, recently the FCC granted an experimental license to a Texas-based company called AST SpaceMobile. For those that aren't familiar, they are another company similar to SpaceX that does low Earth orbit satellites that you'll kind of see around. Internet is a common frequency use, but also this one is actually used for cellular connectivity. So if you don't know also, SpaceX has now a license agreement with T-Mobile. So when your cell phone is out of coverage, you can connect to a satellite and use satellite phone calls on your normal device. So SpaceMobile has a contract with AT&T and Verizon, so two major players in the U.S. market. And the license for AST SpaceMobile directly is on top of the 70 centimeter spectrum. So it is in an area where it definitely could interfere, especially if you're not in the US where the 70 centimeter spectrum is a little bit smaller. A lot of the European countries are protesting the FCC and granting this experimental license because they are concerned that it will have harmful interference with hams on those bands, or on that band, I should say. Also, the application. So you see ARRL posting and other European entities and hams giving feedback to the FCC. And obviously, they're really concerned that they feel the application is very vague. And they're concerned, again, about the harmful interference that it can cause. So the FCC has assigned a temporary call sign to Whiskey Papa 2 X-Ray Romeo X-Ray, and that expires July 1st, 2027, and that is held by that SpaceMobile AST. Now, the other bit of news we've seen, so again, looking at the context of our spectrum defense, is the FCC's ability to spectrum auctions. That expired some time ago, up until recently, when a new law was signed by President Trump on July 4th, restoring the commission's ability to have auction authority. So the only thing that the FCC has said that they're looking to auction off at this point is unused, what's called AWS-3 microwave band, which is some already allocated to 5G. However, you are worried now that the FCC has granted this temporary license to SpaceMobile. This administration is obviously very pro-business. That's currently in the office. Are we concerned that our ham spectrum is under attack? Do we see that there is? Do we feel that we have the right people? Let's say the ARRL, for example, in place to sort of help defend that spectrum. And I kind of open it up to the group here.
Yeah, so it looks like AWS-3, which is the initial thing that they're targeting for sale, is 1.7 gigahertz to essentially 2.2 gigahertz of band space. And there's about 3 sections of that appear to be part of this. So very interesting. And obviously, not many of us are set up with microwave capability, or small, I would say gigahertz capability. I won't call it microwave, but we're not set up with that capability here as hams. But as we talk about this more, right, it's the slippery slope theory, which always comes up, was if you start someplace where you're not going to draw much attention and you establish yourself as able to do a thing, do you then allow that person then to feel empowered to do that person, that organization to then feel empowered to make decisions that then do become more and more detrimental or affect larger groups of folks like hams, right? And the space that we're talking about right now is 430 to 440 megahertz, which would be part of the AST SpaceMobile temporary testing license, if I understand this correctly, right, James? So what we have here is a small slice of our ham space, and already a small part of a band, right? We have in the United States 430 to basically 450 megahertz. We technically have 420 to 450, right?
Right.
But we have to observe the additional rules from the 420 to 430 megahertz part of that.
So there's a lot, you can look at that and say there's not a lot of space they want, but for those of us that are affected by line A, which takes out 420 to 430, there's parts of the United States that have 420 to 430 at their disposal. They can use it just like we do everywhere else. But those of us that up here in Michigan and along the northern border, line A, we don't get 420 to 430. So now they want, there's the potential of losing 430 to 440 or having to share it nicely, perhaps, depending how you word it. Well, what goes on in that 430 to 440? People might say, oh, that's not a big deal. All our repeater outputs are between 440 and 450. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the 430s. There's a lot of satellite activity in the 430s. People who run sideband do it in the 430s. Most of us that are running hotspots in our house for D-Star, All-Star, MMDVM are in the 430s. So there's a lot going on in the 430s, even though it may not seem like a big use. It's something that would affect us all in some way if they chose to share that in a way that's not great for ham radio.
No, and I do have concern too, because we didn't even mention this yet. There was a few months ago also discussion with the FCC about auctioning off some bandwidth or frequency spectrum for the fast day trader. So they use radio wave communication to broadcast from city to city to do more real time or more expedient day trading or stock trading exchanges. And that was also being very considered, and they have a lot of money to throw against that in terms of lobbying as well. I'm also sharing on the screen for those that are watching. The ARRL filed comments to protect the 70 centimeter amateur band.
Right.
You can obviously go up there into the ARRL.org and you can find and read this whole article as well if you're interested in learning a little bit more.
I think that, again, James asked the question right out of the gate, which is to say, us as amateurs, right? Who is lobbying for the interest of the amateur? And first and foremost, it's us that are licensed, right? We do need to be actively commenting, sending responses to the FCC when there are open opportunities for comment, and we need to speak for ourselves. But James asked a fair question, which is to say, are we getting enough from our largest lobby, which is the ARRL at this point? I don't think that anybody would argue any differently when it comes to amateur radio. And it's good to see that they put a comment in on this, but we were wondering, and maybe comment below if you're listening here. What are your thoughts, right? What else should the ARRL be doing, and what should we be trying to do so that we don't lose what little band space is left for us here on the 70 centimeters segment, right? And I think that's really important when we look at this. Rory, the line A thing didn't even pop into my head.
Well, see,
I'm in Michigan, but it didn't even pop into my head until you said it. And it's even more interesting now to me because we already don't have access to those 10 megahertz. So you cut another 10 out because it might be used for this very likely, very widely deployed commercial solution. And that starts to make me wonder, right, if with enough money it can be bought. And that door, if it's open already, with the AWS3 space or whatever there, is that where we're headed? I don't know. It's very...
I use the line, I think the ARRL needs, they're good at, we were kind of talking about this earlier in our show prep, the ARRL seems to be doing well with writing comments and placing comments and writing these articles that we see, but are they really actually going and banging on the doors and getting political with this? And again, we're not wanting to take this down a political path, because that's just not the way we want to go. But we certainly want to advocate for ourselves and advocate for the spectrum that we all use. And it's that same thing. Once you give it away, like you guys said moments ago, once you give it away,
Never
or you
getting
start slipping a few pennies, a few megahertz out the door to do this or that.
Yeah.
Once it's gone, you don't get it back.
Well, my biggest fear too is we put a lot of pressure on the ARRL to go do something, but I do really feel it's a David versus Goliath situation a little bit as well.
100%.
I mean, you look at these companies that have this big revenue, AT&T, Verizon. I mean, ARRL is a volunteer nonprofit organization. We all have our opinions on the ARRL, but their money is still limited. So I really do, Jim hit the nail on the head. I think hams, regardless of your ARRL affiliation or opinions, really is the best tool to use. And I think, call the FCC or write letters and submit to their applications or their requests for feedback, but also call your senators, call your congressmen, congresswomen, and also give the feedback there. Emails, phone calls, whatever it can be. I think radio does play an important role in things like emergency communication, technical development, and training. It's a good proving ground for a lot of development in terms of developing your technical expertise or testing new things or learning how to experiment. And it's, there's a lot of benefits that we need to protect in this hobby. And I think that is one of the paths that I worry, even if you put the ITU, the Great Britain Amateur Radio Society, the ARRL together, it's still small compared to some of that lobbying power that those other entities have. And that's really my real concern.
You nailed it on the head, James. It is 100%, when it boils down to it, funds to make a thing happen, right? And we all know that with enough money, most things can be made to happen. And that's what is going to be essentially the ham's uphill battle in this particular argument, is to say, at what point are we not able to demonstrate with funds that we are interested, but simply put, this is part of the amateur radio hobby, and there are many other intangible things that come from the amateur radio hobby that I think a lot of folks benefit from, right? It's not just amateurs that benefit from this, and I'll let's zoom out a little bit here, right? Over the weekend, as amateurs, we were out checking the storm sirens here in our county to make sure that they were functional, and we were using our amateur privileges to make sure that we could check in with the net control and let the emergency services folks know whether or not those things were functioning. And those are the types of things that I don't think folks understand happen as a sidebar to us in the hobby, right? We are using our privileges to help many facets of everyday operation around your town, probably.
And a lot of the feedback there will be, so what? Just pick up your cell phone and use that. And I look at it from two avenues, right? One, if some of these sirens are in remote locations for a good reason, so self-service isn't always possible, especially if we look at some of the rural Michigan areas. And two, if it really is a real emergency, and I know a lot of hams have their opinion on, is ham radio a real emergency prepper situation or useful in an emergency situation, whatever. But if it is a real emergency situation, it's a good test. The amateur radio will always get out. You pick up the mic, you hit the button, it will go.
The RF goes someplace.
Yeah, it goes someplace. So it really is a good practice as well for all of us if there's an emergency situation to provide support and practice communication also on a temporary basis. So I think also the argument of we'll just pick up the cell phone and call. Sure. I mean,
that's one tool.
Some users have used EchoLink also to call in to the net as well. But you're right; it's one tool in the toolkit.
That's one tool in your toolkit, and I think that a well-prepared prepper has numerous redundancies when we talk about this. And in communication, we have redundancies. In our food stores, we have redundancies. In our ability to generate heat and cover ourselves to protect ourselves from the elements, we have redundancies, right? And so when I look at that, it is simple to say, well, your cell phone is working now, but what if it isn't, right? Or what
if happens? Yeah, periodically, there are outages. Yeah,
we just had a Starlink outage last week, and folks had said, well, shoot, if what am I bothering with what am I bothering with any other method? I'll just get Starlink and I'll have internet wherever I go, right? Well, that was true, and they did actually have very impressive service level agreements and all that in place, but it failed and it went down completely for a fairly significant part of a day. So, I mean, it's very interesting to me that we're, when we look at this, right, let's keep in mind that there are some big benefits that we have here and things that we offer as hams, and I don't think we should sell ourselves short. That's basically the simple part of this.
I think the value that comes behind the people that are amateur radio operators, that because we're allowed this very healthy spectrum that we can use for a lot of different causes, different frequencies for different needs. But the value you get by allotting that spectrum to people, okay, sure, you could pick up a phone and call the county and let them know the siren worked or didn't work. But when you're allowing the spectrum, you suddenly get, in the United States, 740,000 people that are licensed amateur radio operators that are likely going to be willing to go and help their community, help with a siren test, help with things as simple as a point of distribution. You might get these people who are able to, using that might not be a radio-based event, but you're going to get these people that are community-minded because of ham radio that are willing to help. And when you get volunteers like that, it becomes a value multiplier to all of our public services. I mean, it's very important. It's almost not just a spectrum thing. We could, you could talk about that too, but it's giving a group of people who have a lot of goodwill a place to practice their hobby and do all the things that come with it, including public service.
And not to mention, ham radio is fun. And I don't want to lose spectrum because I enjoy having it and I wanted to use for my hobby. So I'm going to be a little selfish there as well.
Well, the 430 to 440 megahertz is not a repeater space generally, right? That's more of a space where a lot of experimentation happens, a lot of interesting employment of ham radio technology happens for the purposes of trying new things, right? If you have an MMDVM node on your desk, you're probably running it somewhere in that spectrum, right? If you have a Sherry node on your desk, you're probably running it there. If you're experimenting with low power point-to-point network things for the purposes of monitoring like temperatures or any number of things, right? You're probably using a part of your spectrum space there for that type of thing. So it's an experimental space, and we need to keep that in mind. And one thing that really, I think, as you guys were talking more, it made me think, right? It's easy to simplify something when we're arguing, well, business has this much upside, right? And it's a very big number. It's a big number that none of us can fathom because we're not AT&T or whomever else is going to benefit from it. But the easy thing to say is, well, without that big number, these guys are just sending CW and contesting and rag chewing, and it's easy to make this anti-argument that the amateur space is not important because, right? And I think that is where, if you're asking me what can the ARRL do more of, it's to highlight, emphasize those things that do show value to non-hams, right?
Absolutely.
Show that value to non-hams in a better way than when I read through this particular comment. This comment, it talks about semantics of the words and whether or not this is a precedented move, and that's fine. That's part of that comment. But in this comment, there needs to be other expanding thoughts that argue that it isn't just the money, right? There are other things that we gain by having these folks with access to this space.
Which, regardless of the reason, ARRL should always be doing that, I feel. Always be on the horn, basically trumpeting the value of ham radio, regardless of the situation.
But it's like I said, it's easy to say like, well, it's just contesting and it's just rag chewing.
Yeah. They're just talking to people in Miami.
Oversimplifications are. It's really easy to bundle that all up and say, well, that's just ham radio, right? And that's we know because we're exposed to it every day and see the breadth of the hobby, what it can do. But folks outside of it don't understand that, and I think that's perhaps where I would argue the ARRL perhaps has more responsibility there to make those non-hams more aware, and that might be something that we could say we would like to see more of. I think they're trying. But
and that the hobby is alive and well. I really do believe the hobby is alive and well, because you do get the people. If I try to explain to people at work, well, what do you do? Ham radio. And at first people were like, wait, that's still a thing that people do in this world? And they would laugh at me like, you're a nerd. But now what's funny is...
Well, you are a nerd, but...
I am a nerd, yeah, that is true. But what's funny now is people come to me and tell me stories about like, oh, I was talking to my neighbor and they thought they had a ghost. Actually, it's kind of why it's funny about the Rory logging into your flex in the middle of the night. They thought they had a ghost because they moved into a new condo and their faucets and their lights kept going on at like 3 in the morning. And it turns out they went down and talked to their neighbor about how their house is haunted. And he's like, wait, what? And he goes, oh, I'm a ham. And he was downstairs doing FT8, and it was obviously interfering with the lights and stuff. But you start to hear more and more stories, or even my wife, we drive by a building, she goes, is that a ham radio antenna on top of that house? And she's noticing now the difference between the ham radio antennas and TV antennas and all the things. So you start to pick up that it is really a hobby, alive and well. And to your point, Jim, that is what they should be advocating. The importance
Awareness.
and also that it is a thriving technical hobby that is great for technical development and other skill sets as well.
I want to say one last thing, and then I think Rory's got a thought here because I can see it on his face.
Yeah,
developing.
we keep cutting Rory off. We're sorry, bud.
If you listen to the Ham Radio Newsline, which happens once a week, right, and there's a couple of interesting articles, right? They talked tsunamis this week and how folks were ready if a tsunami were to hit so that they could be first responders, that type of thing. That's not what I'm thinking about. What we did here was this past field day, and I know we were critical of field day for some reasons, perhaps, was one of the most well-attended ever. I think it was the most well-attended ever. So it should go to show you right there that there are folks that are operating in the hobby, and it is not dying by any means. We have new hams joining this club here in South Lyon every week. We have new hams that we hear on the air that we're shepherding along as technicians. There is a serious interest right now, and that's why this podcast started, right? Generally speaking, all three of us are basically new hams again. We're reborn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm actually a first-time ham. No, I'm literally the new ham here.
Yeah. So there you go. That's my argument. Rory, go ahead. Take this one away.
A couple things. Yes, I think you're right there. What you just said about the club, our local club, and the trends in clubs in the area. There seems to be more new hams joining and getting involved now than I recall from my earlier time being active in the hobby. I don't recall seeing the interest that we see on a monthly basis from new people. I mean, we hear from people on our repeater and in our club on a monthly basis that we've not heard the month before. And, you might say, oh, that's just one person here, one person there. You happen to get two in this month. But, after 12 months go by, that's 12 people or 20 people that suddenly are very interested in the hobby, and then suddenly it spreads from there. Their families are interested. Their wives are noticing the antennas on top of things.
My kids still make fun of me.
Well, you'll have that all the time, but that's fine. But I think someone did make a good comment about the ARRL. They'll advocate to a certain point, but we do need to advocate for ourselves. And I think some people kind of don't understand that writing Congress and calling Congress, calling your representative, calling your senator, people say, oh, that phone call just goes into a circular file, or that letter just goes into a circular file. That's not true. And I'll tell a story, as I've told before, as I've mentioned on here and elsewhere. I'm a member of Civil Air Patrol. Civil Air Patrol gets money from Congress every year, and every year CAP members get all dressed up in our weird Civil Air Patrol uniforms, and we go knock on the doors of our senators and congresspeople and remind them that why they should continue helping to fund Civil Air Patrol. Well, what happens with that is they start seeing these people all the time, every year, come through. Every February they come through DC. Then magically their staff and their people suddenly remember. They may not know what CAP is. They see these weird people show up, but they know something about it, and it has their attention. So I think we can all work collectively to help keep amateur radio and the spectrum on the minds of our Congress people, and send a letter, make a phone call. Like I said, you might feel like it goes into a circular file, but I'll tell you my experience with CAP on the Hill. It's surprising how much they remember, even if they just had one random phone call or one random conversation with someone in an elevator about the organization. That same goes for ham radios. So don't give up. Definitely, certainly advocate for yourself. Advocate for all of us. Make a phone call and write a letter.
Yeah. And I was going to end this with, so do we collectively feel we're well defended, or should we be doing more, I guess?
Make a phone call, write a letter. That's what I say.
So simple no,
yeah,
do more.
That's my answer. Are we? No. It just like you guys said, it's going to be terribly hard to go up against Big Ma Bell. It's not called that anymore, but you know what I mean. It's going to be hard for us to go against
AT&T. Someone with
AT&T,
lots of deep coffers, right?
people with money and more money behind it.
We're picking on AT&T, but there's a lot of organizations
more.
that love
this is just an example.
Sweet spectrum,
just an example, right?
With this one,
not...
though, I think the international community, and I was trying to find the list of countries. A lot of the other countries we mentioned, the different amateur radio groups, but there was a whole list of countries that are already responding to this worldwide. And it is getting some attention that way too. So it's not just a thing in the United States. It's not just an FCC or ARRL thing. It's definitely throughout Europe. I believe a lot of the similar organizations there are starting to respond, and we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see.
So I
think one more thing I want to say on this topic, right, is I'm all for progress, right, and I'm also for competition, which I believe right now Starlink is fairly uncontested as far as its reach and also the capability of it to do certain things, notwithstanding, of course, failing for whatever period of time. But obviously this company here has a similar idea, and competition is good, right? And we do want to see folks continue to explore space, right? And do things with satellites and do interesting things with satellites that benefit us here locally on Earth, whatever you want to say. So just because we're against the idea of using 430 to 440 megahertz does not mean we're against AST in any means. I think that what we're suggesting is do it a different way, or figure a way that can play harmoniously with the space that we are using for other things, right? So the argument here is it's easy to find what we call a bad guy in this situation. I don't think that there is necessarily a bad guy unless we're talking about perhaps vilifying the FCC for potentially selling the space. But I'm kidding a little bit there. But what I'm saying is let's not blame.
There's a little bit of a bad guy.
Okay. Well, but let's not blame
money
the folks that are trying to innovate here. That's, I think, the last thing that I'd like to mention is let's keep innovating, because if we don't, then we're just going to keep buying the same products rebranded over and over again. The prices are going to keep going up, and there's not going to be anything new and fun for us to play with. So let's encourage innovation, but do it in a way that doesn't encroach on the very limited band space that us as amateurs have already.
I think you said it well right there. And I think to maybe keep this good time train going here, Jim, you had one other topic you wanted to touch on briefly, which was related to NOAA satellites, I believe.
Yeah, well, we're talking satellites. It is a bit of a sad day, and I mentioned this, I believe, on almost our first podcast, which was to say, how did you get back into amateur radio? And when I was a fledgling new ham again here about a year and a half ago in January, I had bought a RTL SDR, and I had plugged it into my computer, and I said, well, what do I do now, right? Like, what do I listen to? And I found a couple of really interesting articles that said, why don't you do automatic picture capture or APT capture, right? And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Capturing pictures from satellites, awesome. And so I did, and it really stuck with me. It's something that I did quite a bit. I built a number of different homebrew antennas for it. I built tiny dipoles, 2 feet opposing at 120 degrees, and I stuck it out my window, and then I turned it to try to find the best orientation to the horizon. And all that being said, it was a really cool way to kind of get it back into radio, right? How do I build an antenna? How do I tune it to a specific frequency so that I can maximize my ability to capture and hear these satellites that fly overhead number times a day, right? They're polar satellites, POES satellites is what they were. So NOAA-15 was launched in 1998. NOAA-19 was launched in 2009. These satellites have been in the air for 20-plus years going on now, and we just got word in July that they are being decommissioned, sadly. And it shouldn't necessarily come as too much of a shock, because in June we got word that NOAA-18 was going to be decommissioned. But we kind of expected, I think, maybe us being optimistic about APT as having a longer future than it ended up having, was NOAA-18 had already suffered quite a few onboard failures of its equipment, right? And so it was on life support when they decommissioned it. And when we looked at 15 and 19, one being older than 18 and also one being a little younger, we said, well, those ones are still running well. There were a number of things that were still operating very nicely, and we were still getting cool images from those, and so we thought, oh, they might have some time. But we found out that those were also being scheduled for their end of life. And so NOAA did announce that in August, mid-August here, we will see the final transmissions from those satellites, and it really does end an era.
Really soon. Yeah.
It was announced in July, mid-July, and we are finding out now that the decommissioning of both of those satellites will happen August 12th for the 15 and August 19th for 19, which is kind of fitting for 19. But it really is an end of the era for what is a very, very easy to capture and impressive image from space. It didn't take a whole lot of equipment. It didn't take an advanced antenna. You could build all of it with 2x4s wire and a $30 RTL SDR that you got on Amazon, and you could show somebody and be like, I captured this from space by myself.
I never realized it was that easy until I saw what you were doing with it way back there at the beginning.
And the coolest thing was, right, when you captured those images, it was as the bird was coming over your position. It wasn't that you were capturing a cached image that was taken and then sent down. That was a real-time scanned image as it was flying across the horizon. And so it really was one of the coolest things that I've done yet with radio. I can say it's even to this day. I built a QFH antenna for it, which is it looks like an egg beater essentially, and if you haven't seen those antennas, they're really cool looking. And I put that on my roof because I got so interested in it, in getting better captures of the satellites as they tumble through space. Right, the radio waves are polarized differently, and you build a special antenna to get those pictures. So yeah, it's a bummer to see. And I don't know what to say much more than to be surprised that this equipment, which still appeared to be quite functional, is going to be decommissioned. Now, I've heard some pretty good arguments that say at some point or another, cost to run these outweighs their benefits for the folks that are using them, right? And we do have a number of new digital satellites that are doing these things better, are providing more detailed pictures, but they require significantly more high-end receiving stations. So for us as amateurs, for those folks that might have been interested in dipping their toe and learning a little bit about it, it is a little bit sad to see 19 and 15 seeing their end of life in the middle of this August. So I will tell you, if you've never done it and you have one of these things...
Cheers to 19 and 15 as they boldly go where NOAA satellites go. Yeah,
pour one out for these guys. Are you going to try
and get one last capture?
I was just going to say, so you have a couple of more opportunities here to grab some captures, and if you haven't done it, it doesn't take much. If you're a ham, you probably have enough stuff on your desk to get a picture from these guys. They are so easy to capture that you could be standing in an open field with an HT, and if you tune it to the right channel, you can hear these things flying overhead when they pass. So it's very cool. It is very sad to see these go, and I was bummed out by it. APT is a really neat technology. It doesn't sound as annoying as SSTV to my ear, as far as it goes.
Where are they?
Rhythmic.
That's one thing I've never known. Where are they at frequency wise?
They're around 137 megahertz, the ones that we would capture for APT. So those are going to be really, really easy to get with a fairly small antenna, right? You don't need a big antenna. You don't also need a very advanced antenna, and you didn't need to have it pointed directly at the thing the whole way. They were very flexible, right? So that is what I think is a little bit of a bummer. So
end of an era.
Yep. Near and dear to my heart. Sad to see this kind of end of the chapter, but I figured it's worth announcing and saying out loud. If you're not aware, go check them out. It is a really cool technology, and what I expect I'll be able to do is I have a lot of recordings from them that folks are saying you should upload those so that other folks can recreate the experience or at least see how it worked, right? For the purposes of not losing that stuff to time. So
you have recordings of the audio. Is that what you mean? Oh,
yep,
that's
absolutely.
Cool.
Yep.
That is cool.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on those. I mean, keep a, what's the word am I saying? Keep a lock on those.
Archive.
Archive. There we go.
They've been offloaded to the cold storage.
The words were not coming there. I've used up all my words, but yeah, that would be cool. I'll definitely give it a try. I've never done it. I'm sure I have very minimal receive capability here, but even if I get a bad copy, I'll be glad that I tried it.
We should have a brief NOAA party. Go out to a park, do some POTA, capture one last image, and
didn't take much, man. I built at least three different antennas, probably 4 or 5 total in my pursuit of NOAA, and the QFH was the kind of final one. It was the first antenna I put on my roof before I got back into ham. So it was a huge build project. I burned the hell out of my hand because I brazed pipe for the first time, and I had all these templates built in the shop, and it turned out actually to work fairly well for this particular application. So yeah, it's a really cool thing, and if you haven't done it, I encourage you to at least go read up on it a little bit. But not all is lost. SatDump is a program that makes it even easier than ever to go out and capture some of these new images from the more advanced digital satellites. So check out SatDump if you haven't checked that out already.
Is that an app, software?
Yep, it's a software application that you can download, and it will basically it'll automatically get all the passes for those satellites that can give you that information, and it'll tell you where you need to tune, and then you basically set up the physical infrastructure to get those things tuning. Some of them are more difficult than the APT stuff, but there are some. I've captured some images from the digital stuff, and it is amazingly sharp, the stuff that you can get from those birds. So it's
I'm going to share my screen really quick, Jim, while we're here looking at this. Or at least I'll attempt to share my screen here while we're looking at it.
Yeah, I was going to pull it up, but if you want to share, that would be good.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on if this is the right app since we're here looking at it. Let me go back. I just Googled SatDump.
Yep, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, SatDump. It is essentially it's a broad applicable, or it's a broadly applicable satellite capture software that will also help you track the satellites and then decode the things that you're hearing from them, right? Cool. So it offers kind of a number of things all packaged into one. And if you're trying to put all those things together individually, right? When is the pass happening? How do I decode the sounds that I'm hearing, or the thing that I'm hearing from it, the digital stream? And then where do I point my antenna, or any number of things, right? This software pulls it all together for you, and it works well.
Interesting.
My late APT capture stuff from the NOAA satellites was through SatDump.
And for those listening, it's www.satdump.org. And that will take you to the SatDump website.
Yeah, that's completely new to me. I'm going to give that a look for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to go check out.
So we'll pour our final one out for the NOAA satellites. They are just really, really cool, and they had a number of applications in practice that were far beyond what we're talking about here on the Everyday Ham podcast. So if you're even interested in passing space or satellite stuff, go out, check out just the technology that they packed into these things. They were full of sensor packages. They helped with search and rescue in many ways. So they had deployed these things for a number of different applications that were far beyond, I think, their original design intentions that when NOAA sent these things up. So really the end of the apt era here, and we'll see what comes next and what the community rallies around as the next big satellite capture thing.
Interesting. Well, I feel like we've spent this whole episode of get off my Spectrum lawn, and my old technology's going away here. So we're true hams, guys. We're true hams.
One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning that I was thinking about for a future episode, as everyone's well aware, the FTX-1, we gave our opinions on that. It's been out there quite a bit of time at this point, and I've seen some stuff online where people have had some good luck with it. So we're looking for someone who's willing to come on and sit with us for 15 minutes or so, maybe even 20 if we're feeling good vibes from you, but just a short interview. We're curious at this point. It's been out a while. We've not had a chance for us to have our hands on it, especially with any of the updates or the firmware or even any of the hardware updates. So if any of our friends, our listeners out there have an FTX-1, where are you at with it now? We'll like to set up a little 15, 20-minute chit-chat with you just to see how that radio is doing for you.
Safe to say we want somebody that has had it out in the field and has operated it effectively and is actually satisfied with its performance. So we're not looking for, hey, I just pulled it out of the box and it sure looks cool, because we did that too. And there's a video of me doing it.
Yeah. No,
but
we're looking for
if you actually have made it work for you.
Someone who's had a good experience with it. I'm very curious to talk to someone who's a couple months in and having a good time with it. So everydayhampodcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment below or join our Discord, and we'll get in touch with you and set that up.
Yep. So with that, a quick reminder as well, everydayham.com. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a rating. And with that, 73, everyone. Thanks for episode 8 is in the can here.
7-3.
Good to hear you guys tonight. Bye-bye.